Hey, CoupleyFit fam. Welcome back to another episode of the CoupleyFit podcast. Today's episode, we are talking about the marriage and business merge, what works, what we've learned, and we're excited to share more with you.
The merge. I mean, it truly is an integration of when you're doing business together and you're building on your marriage and also building on something together in business. How do we navigate it? And so many people, I feel like, want to do business with their partner,
right?
But it is kind of scary because there's those quotes out there like, don't do business with family.
With friends and family,
friends
right?
and family.
Yes.
At all costs, avoid doing business with friends and family. But it's like, wait, I'm supposed to be building with my partner. We have our marriage. We're also thinking about doing these other endeavors. How do we do it together?
Right. And this is a frequently asked question that we get from since we started back in 2016 and officially launched in 2017. People have always asked us, how do you guys work together? How do you know which roles are for who and how do they do that? So we're excited to shed a little bit more light on that.
And people always ask too, are you guys newlyweds? Like, you guys look like you love and like each other. And we're like, yes. We're not newlyweds.
Well,
we feel like we're newlyweds, but we've been married for 9 years in October, right? So it's like, these are things that if you can put in some guardrails and have some foundational things, and again, we're still learning, but the things that we have learned and implemented, game changers.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's first talk about our business hats versus our marriage hats.
And they're different hats.
They are different hats.
Because sometimes, right, you got to come in and, lay down the law in business. I'm like, don't come laying down the law on me, right, at the house. Hold on. And I think there is separating those different times when you can turn it off. Because I think we all want to be able to turn it off at some point. But when you're in business with your spouse, it's like I'm in CEO mode, not husband mode or wife mode. And it's like, we do need to flip that switch.
Yes. And it's interesting because I like to also watch other married couples in business on TV. And so, I think it's Married to Real Estate is the one that I like to watch on HDTV, and they are a husband and wife team. He's in the construction space. She's the realtor as well as the interior designer. But it's interesting because when you see some of their behind the scenes, I'm just going to specifically talk for women. It's hard to go from being in that alpha space of, okay, for example, you have to be this certain person in business, and specifically for women to even be taken seriously, where for men, you guys already show up with the confidence. You guys are taught that from the beginning. You guys automatically almost get this respect as opposed to women. And then having to switch that to being more of back into feminine mode when you're at your, in your marriage or you're at home. And so I know that's a difficult thing to do for most women that I specifically speak to, even if you're just a woman that's high level, high value, and you are coming back home and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to flip that switch. I'm not in CEO mode where I'm visionary and I'm strategic and I'm all of these things. It just looks a little bit different when you're in your home life as opposed to your business life.
And so my question to you is, because I'm sure, like you said, a lot of women are asking this, how do you make sure you're not dumbing yourself down? Because, right, you're like, turn off visionary, turn off alpha, turn off execute. It's like, well, dang, are you turning off some of your strongest attributes and things? Which, again, everybody needs a break, but, like, what does that look like to still show up as your authentic self at home?
Yeah, I think it just it's in different ways, right? So you may not be, even your tone, that's first and foremost, right? Where you can have a deeper tone where you're in your business, but at home you can have a lighter tone. And so I was watching a podcast just the other day, and it was a Secret Service agent. She is a female. She has blonde hair, blue eyes. She's from New York. She was talking about how you have to show up with different versions of yourself, especially as a woman, right? If you're in business, you have to show up as a particular almost alpha or even dominant in some ways version. But then at home, you want to potentially flip that switch if you're in a relationship that allows you to do that, because it gives you the opportunity to be more in your feminine energy as opposed to, in business where you do have to be a little bit more in your masculine energy, also depending on which industry you're in. I know for us in the health and wellness space, it's still very male dominated. I remember even when we first started, we would be in boardrooms and I'm the only female in there, and they're literally not even looking at me. They're looking at you like, oh, he has to be the one that's the visionary, and I'm just going to speak to him. But you would look over to me, and then all of a sudden people are just thrown off and looking like, wait, hold on, she's the one that's going to be speaking. She's going to be the one that's giving the vision and doing these things. So it's definitely different in that sense, but just, it's not necessarily, it's a different way of showing up is what I would say.
And then I think, and again, not to go too off track here, but I think this kind of goes into that element. I think sometimes as husbands, when your wife is powerful, doing great things, visionary, successful in business, right? Like a lot of people say they want that out of a partner, but then they're not actually ready for it, right?
Yeah, sure.
So then, because I think there's this dynamic where some women may also choose a partner that's like, I want to be able to dominate at home the way that I do in the office.
Right. Maybe a little bit more using the word submissive, which I know that's a little bit of a trigger word for some.
It can be a trigger word. I mean, boy, there's a fella right now. It's like, wait, submissive? What? But like, if that is your role in your marriage, and I'm going to be honest,
See,
like,
I've seen it.
I've seen it too. And I have someone that comes to my mind immediately, but they've been married for 30, 40 years. And it's like that's their roles.
That's their dynamic.
That's their dynamic. Wife is a doctor. Husband is like, wifey, whatever I can do to support you.
Yes.
He works all of the things, but it's like, it's very much the roles are structured that way. My question to you is, if someone is maybe struggling with that dynamic or trying to define like those hats, what are any tips when it's like, I actually want to be in a more of a traditional situation where, okay, I am the boss at work. I do come home and I want to take that boss hat off and not have to be the dominant one in my marriage. I want it to be a little bit maybe traditional, or I want my husband to be able to step into that role once I get home. Any tips or just recommendations for someone that maybe is trying to navigate that dynamic?
Well, great question. I think a lot of that has to do with leadership, and it has to deal with your dynamic. As we always say from any of our episodes, it's going to take communication.
Yeah.
And it does have to deal with, what do you want from me in my role when I am at home? What are you looking for? Do you want to lead a little bit more in the sense of, even, do you want to be, you're in charge of the vision of the family. You're in charge of maybe the finances of the family. You're in charge of maybe some of those more leadership roles, as opposed to where, when you're in business, it could be flipped where, you know, for the female, she may be the one that's a little bit more dominant in those roles. So I think effective communication is number one. I think number two is also figuring out how you want to lead. What does that look like? And if it's more of a servant leadership, which we always talk about, then it's going to be give and take, where we've done a great job over the years of talking about, okay, this is where I feel comfortable in my role, and this is where do you feel comfortable in your role. And so I would ask you that same question as well, you know, as a woman, but then coming home, right? What would be some things that you would want from a spouse that is more of an alpha woman?
Yeah, well, I can use us as a perfect example.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I can.
I don't want to
us
put
as
us like right on the spot.
No,
but
I'm gonna
yes.
put us on the spot, right? But you know, I would say one thing I'm looking for is there's a famous song, RESPECT.
Oh, of course, men always want respect.
No, but I'm saying people
Yeah.
want respect, right? But what does that respect look like? It's appreciation. It's, hey, thanks for working hard today, whatever that might look like. Hey, thank you for taking out the trash. Thank you. So I think it starts, but again, it's the servant leadership that you mentioned as well, where I'm putting forth the effort, where when we talk about the business hat or the marriage or like husband hat, right, where you're kind of taking that hat off, I think a key piece is there should be defined roles, and we're talking about these are things that are, this is a everybody role. This is a family role, i.e. doing the dishes.
Right.
That's not my wife does the dishes or my husband does the dishes.
Contributing to the household.
Everybody's contributing, but that's a perfect example of like we equally wash, fold, etc. Right? Just for example, but we could define other roles where it's like, hey, like for me, I know I've always been in the mindset of like, I'm going to be a provider, right? Like I'm going to go out and get it. That's my mindset. But what we realized was I don't also need to be in charge of the finances. I can actually say, you know what? You were the treasurer at your high school, like the spreadsheets, Excel, you enjoy that. For me, that would be a daunting task to present this to you and be like, hey, here are all the numbers in the break. I'd be like, I'm not interested. Let me get an overview. but like you take pride in that. So that's a perfect example to me of like taking that hat off, where it's like, okay, you can be in the provider mode and mindset, but you don't have to also manage all the finances and keep track of all of the spreadsheets and planning travel and different things. Like there can be balance. But again, it doesn't mean everything falls on your wife or everything falls on the husband, because those roles are defined and we're having those conversations. And it can change.
Yeah,
And I think that's
absolutely.
a big part too, is that it can evolve.
Especially with the versions of ourselves, right?
Come on now, that's big, because again, like how often, and I just think of just in real time, because we have so many people that we know, but an example is how many stay-at-home moms or a husband, right? Stay-at-home husband, either way, but like they started creating content at home. It goes viral. Now they have brand deals, and they went from being the stay-at-home spouse to now you actually are the provider in the family, and like that content is now contributing in a totally different way. And now it kind of flips of like, wait, we're having different conversations. Now it's like, how are we budgeting? How are we planning? And being prepared that whoever's in the provider seat or whatever ebbs and flows happen financially, that like we're still on the same page, that we're in this together, no matter who's making this or no matter like how we decide we're going to flow in this season.
Yes. Two things came to my mind when you said that. Number one is when you said define the roles, I also think that you need to look at it too from the essence of running a business, right? So who is going to be the visionary? Who's the strategist? Who is the one that's going to be more operational? Who is the one that is going to take over the finances or more financially sound in that sense, right? So I think taking that same concept and bringing that over to your marriage as well is another key piece. And secondly is going to be safety. I think that's something else, especially for women, that's something that we look for. We're looking for safety, whatever that looks like for each woman, I think is going to be a little bit different. For some, it's financial stability. For some, it's protection. For some, it's all, right? But I think when you're able to go from running a business together like we do to then coming over and being in married life, there has to be some sort of safety specifically for women in order for us to kind of bring that alpha down. Because if you don't feel it, you're like, I have to be alpha all the time because I'm not feeling safe or I'm not feeling protected or I'm not feeling, I am the breadwinner. So if I lose my job, then what happens? And we've seen a couple of relationship dynamics that have been like that. And then we also see, to your point, when you said house husbands, nothing wrong with that, but they end up being the ones that are staying home, that are taking care of the kids, and the mom is just, hey, I'm out here, I have to work, I have to do everything I can because I am the safety net for everybody. Yeah. So it can be hard to turn that alpha off in that sense, but I think it's just a great idea when we talk about, I wrote down, in business, we lead based on strength, and at home, we lead based on love.
And leading based on, I really appreciate you saying that too, the strength and then the love. And I also think for someone that's listening, because there's people I know that are tuning in, that are thinking about starting a business, maybe just launched a business with their spouse, but also look at how you're running the household, like you said, because that's such a great example of like, okay, are we talking about our finances right now? Are we planning ahead for what our vision statement is and like who we want to be for the future, right? Whatever that may look like. But that's so key, because those are going to be things you have to do in your business. But like, how are we doing that as a family first? If we're looking and we're like, man, we haven't even planned out the next vacation, where we want to live, what our vision and like future, what we want that to look like, it's going to be hard to launch a business and do all of those things in another area. And it's like, wait, we haven't done that in-house first, which I think that foundation is so important. And as you find any gaps or opportunities, which we all have opportunities to continue to, like, we're still working, refining, improving processes, timing we meet, time of day, right? Like how we present and follow up on different things. So like you're learning that as a married couple, and then you can add business to it versus trying to add business and you're figuring out two things in two hats. And you're like, wait, we didn't have this over here figured out yet.
Correct. And again, it is also, when we're talking business and in marriage, it's really finding out what is your strength, what is your partner's strength, where maybe some areas of opportunity where you may need a little bit more help in this area. I need a little bit more help in this area. And that's a great way to even start too. And you can take tests for that. You can also use ChatGPT for a lot of what we're talking about as well, using your AI tools to figure out what is that vision for the family, what's the vision for the business, but then also like how can you merge the two? You can be very specific on ChatGPT, which is what I really love. If you have a question, ask, and it will spit out, an entire sometimes a program for you, or your mission statement, your visionary statement, whatever that looks like, in order for you to just be more seamless in going from being in a marriage and going into a business, because it's not easy to do that. And then we are going to get into how do you integrate the two, right? Because it's not going to be there's one or the other when you are a husband and wife team, because there is a lot of integration. And so I know something for us that we like to do is something called a hard stop. We've mentioned this before, but a hard stop is, hey, by 7 p.m., we are not going to talk about business anymore. We're going to switch gears into relationship. And then that's typically when we'll ask each other, hey, what were, 3 of your roses and 3 of your thorns today? And what was something you learned, right? And now you start asking more about the person and what your day was like. How can I support you? Then it starts turning, you need to, turn that switch into relationship mode. Because one thing we've always mentioned is that if your business fails, that's fine, but you don't want your marriage to fail. So making sure you're working on both of those equally, and then also realizing that there will be times where the business is going to need a little bit more attention, and vice versa for your marriage too, where it's going to need a little bit more attention, especially when you start talking about life events that happen. Even though over the past 2 years for me, I had both of my last living grandparents pass, right? So there were some times where, you maybe had to come in and pick up a little bit more of the slack on both ends, just because it's like, whoa, some of these things were unexpected. And there's a lot of emotions and feelings that are coming with it that, I'm still navigating, but your spouse is there to kind of pick that up. And I think that also goes to what we've mentioned before, where marriage is not 50-50 all the time. There's times where it's 70-30, it's 60-40, and just being mindful of that, both in your marriage and then also in your business.
Yeah, and it's like any team, right? There's times where, I'm a big Michael Jordan fan, but Michael Jordan flu game, like clearly, he had a great game, but like he had the flu. So literally other people had to pick up the slack, the assists, the rebounds. Maybe he's not getting back as much on defense, but that's not forever.
Right.
Like he's literally dealing with something today or for that season or moment. How can we help? You mentioned something about tests. And I know sometimes, like, I know for me, I used to get anxiety, like when some school, they like test, pop quiz. I'm like, oh man. But the test that we're talking about from a personality or collaboration or relationship side are really helpful and can be a game changer for somebody. And some people just don't know that the resources are out there. So one of them that we took, obviously the 5 love languages, right? That's more relationship, but it'll at least let you know, like, oh, I need to make sure that we do a 7 o'clock hard stop, but we also spend quality time together and go for a walk, or we read together, or
positive affirmations throughout the day.
Come on, positive affirmations, babe. That was so amazing. You're awesome. Yes, I'm so proud of you.
Great job closing that deal.
Come on,
right? Or
and
just
that
great
means,
job helping me.
But for real, but that means so much, because it's like, oh my gosh, you really appreciated that. And I'm the type, not to say that this is petty at all, but I'm a Taurus, and sometimes
petty patty.
Come
over
on,
here.
if I do the dishes, I need acknowledgement. And I will wait until you don't see those flowers, you don't see those dishes. Did you notice that I put that away? So but
which sometimes you have to do, and that's what. So to your point of what you're saying with that, especially for men and women, but sometimes you do have to point it out, because especially when we're talking about integrating your business and your marriage, some things can just be simply overlooked, and it's not malicious. It's what we always say sometimes, it can be just a little bit of the chaos of, we've got a lot going on right now. Yeah,
and we always say too, charge it to my head and not my heart.
Yes.
Because there's times where, I think about, I'm a big Detroit Lions fan, but I'm just thinking about Dan Campbell. We had a game, he gave away 3 game balls, and Jared Goff had a perfect game. Like he made every pass. Like 18 for 18, and he didn't get the game ball. Yeah. He's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I didn't give him a game ball, and he threw a perfect game. But like, it happens, but when it came to his attention, he acknowledged it.
Exactly.
Man, let me get you this other game ball because you deserve it. And that was incredible. Perfect example. But in going back to the test side of things, the 5 love languages is one. Gallup strength test is huge, because if you can know, oh, this person is significance is important, or relatability. Oh, I know I can position them here, or they're going to be best fitted to do outreach for this in the business because they're relatable and they're a social butterfly, or those types of things. And the test isn't a right or wrong or a pass or fail. It literally is just answer honestly, and I'm going to let you know more about your personality based on how you responded to these questions, so we know how to work together. I know the Colby Index was the last one. That one we took, and it really gave us like how to collaborate and work together. In partnership, which was huge, because one of the biggest takeaways that was a game changer for us was we work incredibly well together in partnership, but we can't work at the same like table together because we work differently. So like we literally will go into separate offices, get work done, come back and reconvene on like, hey, this is what we got accomplished. These were my to-dos, these were yours. You might have one set of music playing on, I may not have on headphones, but like so many people have never gone through that discovery or found that out. And you're like, man, why aren't we working well together, sitting here at the table head to head and not getting as much done as we thought, and we feel like we shouldn't be in business together? No, y'all just needed to be at separate desks, and it could be that simple as a breakthrough.
Yes, and to your point, right, we also realize that your day-to-day, right, you are, it's like that salesperson
head down,
mentality.
Grind.
The grind. It's also, it reminds me of, right, when you were playing collegiate football. Day to day, you're prepping for the next game, as opposed to me, where I am more of the macro visionary. Where are we going in 5, 10, 15 years? Making sure that we're staying on top of that. And then also when we're in meetings together as well, because that can also be, you know, if you're both alphas and it's like head to head, realizing that, okay, where your strength is going to be in the closing of the deal, right? Where my strength is, it's going to be making sure that we have all of the information that we need and the R&D is done for you to be able to come in and close that deal if need be. And then I come in on the back end with the follow-up with, you know, just carrying the deal all the way through. And also for you, right, when we go out to events, you love to network. You very much, your social battery when it comes to that is phenomenal. Me, listen, I get drained quickly. So also realizing that as well. And also for me, I do better in smaller groups where you can do better in larger groups. Doesn't mean that we can't do both. It's just like, where is it best for you? And also for a lot of times it's that social battery, the social battery too. So realizing just a few of those, hopefully that can help you all as listeners, if you are looking to get into business with your spouse, that those are just some ways that we had to learn over the years. And let's also preface by saying this has been almost 9 years of learning that we've had to go through. So don't think that this is going to be something that's overnight. Some of these, we didn't take that Gallup test until probably a year or two into CoupleyFit. So give yourself that grace to be able to learn about your spouse and how they work, what their strengths are, where their areas of opportunities are, and then talk about it, right? Like when you get those test results, let's talk about it. I know for both of us, we're fortunate that at least on the Gallup test, we have 2 strengths that are the same, which is focus and relatability. So for us, we don't ever have to worry about like, are you going to be focused? Are you sure that you're going to be able to get this work done? Oh no, the work will absolutely get done. It's about making sure you're doing the right work. I know you need to be in the day-to-day. You're going to have day-to-day tasks. For me, it's going to be more on the larger vision and then working from there.
And to that point, I really love that you mentioned that, because working together, and you know, I always use sports analogies, but it kind of reminds me of the Patriot way. I know you're a big Patriot fan. Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job. And sometimes it's that simple of play your role.
But can I rely on you?
Can I count on you? Do your job. Be ready.
And that goes in both marriage and business.
Come on now. Okay, and also, when it comes to that scenario of doing your job and doing your part, really playing your role, it's okay to let your partner shine. I think sometimes people struggle with that a little bit.
I'm glad you said that.
Because it's like we're in business together, but what happens when my wife gets the award or my wife gets recognized, or my wife presents the idea and gets all the flowers, or my husband, and now it's like, wait, that was my idea. I did that work, or whatever. And it's like, wait, this is a shared win, but also making sure that we can see that and acknowledge it, because it's no different than a team project or a sport. You're like, man, so-and-so got all the credit for that touchdown, but I caught the pass.
Okay.
Or I did the studying, or
Sure.
I prepped the presentation.
Sure.
And
But
so,
shared goals, shared vision,
come on.
shared mission.
And being able to really echo that to your partner as well. And again, give that reinforcement, because to your point, you can be vision, operational, but again, I'm coming in and closing the deal. You're the how. I could be the wow at times. Like, I wowed you, but you're like, yo, this is how we're going to bring this to life.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is the work. But then the person that's doing the work can feel like, wait, I'm not getting the credit. And that's why it's so important to communicate it, to echo, hey, I appreciate you. But also when your time to shine, like, man, I need to be the loudest cheerleader, the biggest cheerleader. You need to have the freaking towel over the head, rooting on you, for real, rooting on your partner.
Right.
Because if you're not, don't be a hater.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's so interesting too, because that's something that I hear specifically for women that are in more of a leadership role, a high value role, that their husbands can get a little jealous or envious, I should say, because envy is with one person. They can get a little envious of, well, you know, that should be me, or why am I not getting that same type of recognition? And, you know, and then it turns into, okay, well, you, as much as you say that this is a shared win, does that other person actually feel that? And do they need to maybe do some self-reflection and do some journaling, right? And start seeing like, well, why am I feeling this way? Is it because, you know, are you feeling inadequate in some areas? Do you feel like you maybe need to step up? There's, you know, hey, it needs to specifically, I think, just speaking for women, if we are in these more alpha leadership roles and we're getting the recognition in those things, you know, men's ego can kind of creep in there. And it then becomes like, well, this isn't even about you. Like, what you just made this something that was supposed to be such a happy, joyous moment into about you. And now that's where the resentment starts. And if you start having that resentment start in business, that will carry over into your marriage. No matter how much we're talking about the hard stops, the this, right? And you're putting those guardrails in, it's just natural because you're with this person all the time. And it's like, oh, okay, well, if you were acting this way over here, well, maybe I need to watch you over here in our marriage too. And how are you acting over here? And some of that can lead into some other areas where, you know, people can go stray.
No, I mean, but you mentioned the stray, and I also think about some of that envy that you mentioned. I mean, I remember, you know, we've been blessed to receive some incredible awards and, you know, be on the stage both together and individually, but I'll never forget seeing some of the powerful women, titans of industry, getting awards, excited, photo, husbands like this.
Straight face.
Why am I here? And I'm like, bro, this is your wife getting acknowledged.
Yes.
And again, this is not a knock on any, you know, one particular person,
Yes.
but to your point, how do you feel celebrating your spouse or your partner when it's not you that's winning? And we've all been there, right? Like, you're waiting and want to get the award or make the team, and you see your friend get the award or make the team or get the whatever. Like, are you rooting for them, or are you kind of feeling like, ooh, I wish that was me?
Yes.
Or how come that's not me? Or how come I'm not getting the award? And sometimes we have to check ourselves. We have to literally like check. It's like two voices. Check that hater, right? That's that voice on the shoulder that's hating. Like, you don't need to root for your wife. You know, you should be up there on stage.
Right.
And really be like, no, I need to cheer for her. This is my partner. Like, I'm also helping her get there by taking care of the household. It's a reflection of us. And I think that's so big, and that needs to be something that, like, people remind themselves of, because if not, right, that envy is just like, it's not good.
Well, it's one of the deadly sins, right? When you talk about envy. So I'm glad you brought that up. So interesting enough, two things came to my mind. Number one is specifically if you are a husband and wife team, there are going to be times where the other spouse may say to you, hey, I've been feeling either a little neglected. I've been feeling like you've been putting a lot of time into the business. I'm not feeling like you're putting that same time into me. That when you hear that, take note of it. Obviously know where you are in your season, where if it's like, okay, well, we have a major deadline coming up. I mean, I need to really
I'm in the midst of a merger. Like, give me 2 weeks.
Right. Give me a little bit of time to be able to get through this, but acknowledge that your spouse is saying that. I hear you. I see you. And then it's do something micro, right? Like, it doesn't need to be this over the top, I'm taking you on this trip now, because it's like, okay, no, we're going to get through these 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, we'll be able to maybe go on that trip or do this vacation. But in those 2 weeks, I'm going to have a Post-it note where I'm going to write an affirmation for you. I'm going to send you a really nice text. I'm going to find something on Pinterest that it says, you know, you can type in prayers for my husband, literally. And I send you some of those too, but you can do those little micro things that at least lets your partner know that you heard me, that you see me, and I'm going to make you feel more valued, you know, after this big, whatever, like you said, merger or this season kind of passes. So that was number one. Number two was going to be that, specifically when we're talking about a husband and wife team, is remembering that whatever boundaries are put into place, try to honor them as much as possible. So if like we said, if that hard stop is there, try to honor that as much as possible. If there's another boundary of, you know, hey, if you have kids, for example, if you're a husband and wife team and you also have kids, another boundary can also be, hey, our date nights. Yeah. Do not forget your date nights when you work together. Right. When you work together and you are married, you have to have your date nights. Do not let those go, even in the midst of those busy grind seasons. And so that may look like, hey, we're going to stay home and we're going to watch this movie that we've been wanting to watch, but I'm going to call, you know, a family member to come get the kids so we can have this time to ourselves. But really being mindful of that boundary. And I think that's a great boundary to put up is, hey, we're still married. We still need to pour into this relationship. So let's make sure that we're sticking to our date nights. And you mentioned the Google Calendar or calendar invites. That's something that we live by. I mean, you know, even after this podcast, you probably hear us say a couple of times, we're going on a mini date night after this, just so that we can, again, this is a pause on the business side. Let's get back to the married side and also add a little bit of fun, right? It's not always fun when you're working together and you're also in a marriage. And if you have kids, there's so many people pulling you in so many different directions that it's like, hey, let's just do something fun. Let's go play mini golf. Let's go, you know, shoot some hoops. Let's go just do something that's going to bring a little bit of a childlike state to our marriage.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned and doing something fun, because it always doesn't have to be expensive.
No.
The calendar is so key, because whether it's a digital calendar, meet yourself where you're at. Mm-hmm. Like, we have multiple calendars. We have the digital calendar, and then we have a physical calendar that we write things on too.
Classic.
That we literally, you walk past the office, you're like, oh, let me just check and see what we have this week, right? And be prepared, but it's being intentional to make sure that you're prioritizing it. Because we'll prioritize other things.
That's right.
NFL fantasy draft. Like on the calendar.
Or video games.
Circled. The new reality TV show, Thursday night.
Come on, Love Island.
We're doing all of that, but it's like me and my husband haven't spent dinner together or done a day. And that's the other thing too. It can be date night. Mm-hmm. It can be date day. Right. Date morning. Like if you have childcare or support to watch the kid from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., maybe it's going out and you all are golfing together, or like whatever that looks like in your relationship. And think back, what did we do when we had the most fun ever in our relationship? Mm-hmm. Like for some people, it's like, oh, it's playing Pac-Man at the arcade, mm-hmm. and you literally have a roll of quarters and you're just in there playing games. But that takes you back to the times you had the most fun together, when you really enjoyed like just each other's company and building and baking that into that time together, because it's so often it can become about everything else, and you don't want to always have to have, I need a break, not from work, but I need a break from my partner. Right. And I know there's people that are like, oh man, I need a break from my spouse. Man, I'm gonna be out all week, or I'm gonna, I need to vacate
be out
from
the boys, be out the girls.
Right. And it's like, well,
how you still need that.
Which you do. But that shouldn't be the I always need that. Mm-hmm. It should be, hey, I need
an escape.
Correct. You shouldn't feel like I need to escape. That should just be something that's factored in. It's an addition.
Yes. And it's so interesting because what we're talking about too, a lot of it has to do with honesty. It has to do with transparency. It has to do with communication. Really just these should be kind of the foundation pieces of a marriage anyways. Bringing that same mindset into your business as well is definitely going to be key.
And I was just going to say that that's becoming, and what we're seeing now more and more, and I think it's happened too with being in remote business, the expansion, whether you're driving Uber or Lyft or working, like you're able to get transparent data on anybody's business, basically. Like, what's their Google review rating? What are people saying about you? What's their trust pilot? All of these things, right? So it's like, how are you building and creating that trust in your marriage, but then also in your business, right? Because if people don't know you, like you, or trust you, it's going to be hard to get someone to invest into your product or into your service. But like, how do you lay that foundation on the front end?
Yes. And you wrote down a few things on here. Boundaries, be protected at all costs, because we were talking about that a little bit earlier, is Sundays off. Obviously, that's the Lord's Day, right? At least for us. Shut off times where there is no work. We talked a little bit about the hard stop.
And I will say, we always talk about it's not always like open and shut or easy, because if you have a deadline, right? Like we may have a hard stop at 5, but if the deadline, is today, you work until the job is done. But now we're factoring in, this isn't overlapping on date night, or we're going to make sure that we still do that thing that we want to prioritize in addition to the work.
Right. And also realizing if you are running a business, you all are essentially the co-CEOs. So you all can also make your schedule. We're sure we have, we've had back-to-backs all day, but I'm going to carve out a little bit of time during lunch where we're going to sit down and have lunch together. And it's not talking about work. We're just going to be talking about, something other than that. And you can do that weekly or even daily if you want to, but you are the boss when it comes to also being in your business, so you can create the time, because that's something that we've heard. I don't have the time. When am I going to have the time to do this? I'm so busy. I'm building, this multi-million-dollar company. Well, yeah, you're the one that's building it. So that's key. So then you can actually be the one that is scheduling out the time. You let your assistant know, hey, this is, if you can have my calendar and my spouse's calendar, this is the time that we want to meet up and have lunch every Wednesday, right? Like you can start building that in. One thing too, work doesn't come to the bedroom. That's something too, right? Where like as soon as that door closes to the room, you leave all your, problems or what's going on the outside, and then just really think about like, gosh, you did such a great job today. And that's where like the positive affirmations can come in of just you're thinking about the day and what was going through, and giving your spouse the affirmations that they need, or just, switching that gear too.
And also one thing I love that we do, speaking of bedroom, is not having a TV in the bedroom. Because sometimes it can be, one, such a distraction, two, like who wants to see like the news or something like that. And it's like, we're trying to connect or maybe be intimate. It's like distraction, right? Yeah. So I think that also is something else that helps of like, boop, we're not even worried about that work or that news or some of those things. Like, again, it's on that outside element versus coming and being another thing that we're thinking or worried about. And
to add to that, we don't work in our bedroom. Like we're not on our laptops in the bedroom. We are not on our phones even. It's really that time where, it's for reading. It's for also just chatting about the day. Like, let's unwind. Yeah. Let's just think about, whoa, what happened today? Not riling yourself up because you're about to go to sleep, but just taking that time to leave work on the outside and saying like, okay, this is almost like a safe space for us where it's mutual and it's not going to be a place where we're going to bring that work in to this sacred space for us.
And a big boundary for me was just not using my phone as an alarm. Because when the phone is an alarm, right? Like, yeah, it's an alarm, but it's also everything else. So it's so easy to like, oh, let me check and see what's going on. I'm checking the Lions score, and it's like midnight. It's like, man, Lions ain't even playing. Like, what are you searching? What are you looking for? You're reading articles, and it's like it can be a distraction. But putting my phone literally in the living room, having an old school plug-in alarm that's set up, but again, there's no distract. I'm not reading text messages from that alarm or
Right.
other things
Or
that
emails,
or emails
yeah,
or
come on.
text updates
Right.
or taking phone calls that can interrupt your sleep. It's
Right.
like that's in the other room, but I still have an alarm to make sure that I wake up, I don't oversleep, I stay on schedule. So there's things that you can create like boundaries, but you have to just continue to learn yourself.
You're right. And also you set the cadence too for the rest of your team and your business. So if you are somebody that, like, for example, right, if you are an early riser, also known as a lion, then you're going to be, that the team can reach out to you maybe sooner. But if you know what the other person may be a little bit more of a night owl, they're the ones that can stay up a little bit later. They may have while the other spouse goes to sleep earlier, you're up a little bit later. So if there's something that's pertinent, that's, hey, I need this, like, I need you to check over this before we go live tomorrow, you can do that. But letting your team know very definitively of, hey, these are the tasks that you can send over to me. These are the tasks for this person. If you're looking for late night responses, email me or talk to me, right? I feel like also being able to let your team in on who each one of you are and how you want them to also approach you. And then also letting them know, hey, it's known across the team that Fridays we leave early on Fridays at 4 p.m. because we're going to have our date nights. You can do that. You are building your business. You are building your company. You set the standard. So you let people know how you want to be treated, and then how also you want the business to be ran. Because it's not, your team members are not naive to the fact that you're a husband and wife team, right? So if you start setting those things too, it also lets them know, like, I need to also set a boundary for myself at work, and have a little bit more work-life integration too.
And it also allows you to take your hands off of the business a little bit as well. So now Friday at 4:00, your team already knows if, like, I either approve this or don't. Like, you're empowering other people within your organization because you're not maybe micromanaging or holding on to everything, because you're like, no, I've got to view it. Hey, here's the criteria. Here's the framework. If it's under this price point, or if it's under you got the green light to go ahead. It's approved, right? And so if you can builds your team, right? It builds that confidence. But now you put in guardrails where it's like, hey, this is approved. And I think that's another big thing too when you talk about the co-CEOs and, again, you're both managing a business, a marriage. Just like in a family, there should be a conversation before someone goes out and buys a car, or a conversation before someone buys, there's a certain threshold on maybe the purchase, right? Same thing in business. Before maybe you hire somebody, or we go buy a new it's like, hey, if it's over $500, it's a conversation, and we make sure that, like, this is the timing for it, or we want to invest in this right now, or this is where we'll see the return on investment, versus come home and find out, hey, we just had a charge for this. And it's like, what? Like, why? Or because it can make perfect sense, but have that conversation on the front end. You're not checking in or asking permission. You're just making sure that we're aligned and we're on the same page. And this is the process that we have, just like any co-CEO would do with the board or with someone that they respect.
Yes, I think it's critical what you said too, of you have to hire the right people and making sure that they're in the right roles, because once you train your team in how you operate both individually and together, and then also write the vision and the mission for the business, now everyone is very clear on their role, what the expectations are, what results need to also happen, but then you're empowering them, like you said, to be able to make those decisions and knowing that it's the right decision, right? Where you as the business owner don't have to come behind them and say, well, why did we make this decision? This didn't make any sense. Now I lose a little bit of trust in you. So now you need to run things by me, which now you're adding more onto your plate potentially because you don't have the right people. So it goes back to Sheila Johnson and what she mentioned of you want to hire slow and fire fast. And so I think that's really critical when it comes to building a team, because you need to have the right people around you that are going to also insulate you, but then sometimes even hold you accountable of, like, hey, you guys said you're leaving at 4, it's your date night, it's 4:30, you guys need to get out of here. Having that too is also, I think, great when you are specifically building a business as a husband and wife team. being able to have employees and team members that are rooting for you all as a couple, but then also your business as well.
Would you mind sharing just a little bit more on the hire slow, fire fast? Just because somebody might be listening and be like, what, firing people fast? What? What is the science behind that, or the rationale? Because I think that's great, but maybe just a little bit more insight on that for the listeners.
So there's two parts to it. So on the hire slow piece, you want to make sure that you have the right person in the right position. So asking them the questions about, you're talking about your soft skills. This is the way that I operate. And that there's a clear expectation of not only them, but then there's clear systems, there's clear visions, there's clear missions. And even having, something that we like to do is we like to have people have a project that they submit before we hire them, so we can see, are you a right fit for this role? And then from there, we usually have our, within the 90-day period, we're seeing, how do you also fit with the culture? Are you results oriented like we are, and making sure that you're getting everything done that we need to in order for us to move this vision of the company forward. And the second piece of that, where it's a little bit of the fire fast, somebody who's going to get you to the $1 million may not be able to get you to 10. The person at the 10 may not be able to get you to the 20. So you have to be very mindful of, okay, you're no longer able to keep up with either the pace or the criteria of what we're looking for. We're going to go ahead and have to let you go, and we're going to hire somebody else in order for us to be able to move this vision forward. And it's not always the easiest thing to do, but if the hiring slow piece has worked well for us, although it's, there's things that come with the hire slow. You have to put a little bit more onto your plate. But then when you hire that right person, you took the time to invest into them, talk to them, make sure that they understand what you're looking for, and let them now, they're just rolling. They're going on their own. They're running things by you, but you're no longer have to worry about that piece of the business, because like, and trust that person's going to complete the job. But then keeping an eye, right? And having those performance analysis of, hey, how are you doing? And are you able to keep up? And if we have, multiple quarters where you're not keeping up and we have multiple conversations about it, we may have to let you go. This may no longer be a fit for both of us.
I love what you said there, because that was one of the things that came to my mind. Was like, man, that's tough, right? From looking at it from the owner or CEO perspective of, someone helped you grow to 10 million. But now we're at 10 million, we're super successful, but now the goal is to get to 100 million, for example, and they're not able to help get there. But you're not saying, oh, we just abandon you and say we don't appreciate what you did from getting us to 1 to 10 or from 0 to 10. But now it's an opportunity to level up, right? It's like, we're giving you the opportunity over X amount of quarters, not just, you missed one deadline or one opportunity and you're gone.
That's not good leadership anyways.
Exactly. We're giving you all the tools, all the resources, everything you need to scale. But if you're at your cap, which has happened.
It has.
You see it.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You're at your cap. It's just not a right fit here anymore.
Correct.
And that's okay, right? And then also you can always take it a step further and help them find another position. If you're really worried about that. And something for us, we are mission based and mission led. So that is something that is, we'll try to help you, but your fit here is you're not a fit here anymore.
And I think it's so powerful in anything, whether we're talking relationship, business, how you handle people, how you treat people, right? There's no perfect recipe. There's always times where it's like, man, you go back or you're rethinking, could I have handled this better? Could I have done this differently? But ultimately, when you're thinking about other people and you're being a relator, you're coming from the heart, you're coming from a servant leadership approach.
Correct.
It still is going to be difficult conversations or hard, tough conversations to have, critical, but it doesn't have to be in a situation where someone feels demeaned or talked down on, or that it ends on bad terms. It can literally be like, hey, I still appreciate you. I'll write a recommendation. I'll support you. But hey, we haven't been, we've had 3 check-ins.
Yes.
And we're off, you're over here and we're over here. It's still
a
business. And even if that is your partner or your spouse, those conversations got to be had. Hey, you are my partner and you are the head of this division or this department, and we're missing deadlines or missing timing. I may need to move you over here. You might have to be on the
Right.
board versus
That's what I
being
was
my
just gonna
partner.
say. We may be co-CEOs now, but we need to have that conversation
Correct.
of maybe you just need to be on the board and make decisions that way, as opposed to being more of the visionary for the business and moving us forward.
Correct.
Yeah. So just a couple of key points is create structure for success. You want to manage your tasks, your discussions, your meetings, making sure, again, that there's some sort of structure in there for not only the business aspect, but the marriage aspect as well.
And then just on something on meetings, frequency is up to you and your relationship. But I think quarterly is waiting too long. Monthly, like there's so many things happening in life,
Yeah.
whether it's kids, business, etc. At least a check-in on a weekly of like, hey, quick spot check. How are we doing on our key things? And I know we love being able to have like our weekly Ps, right? What were our progress from last week, our priorities, and then any problems that we may need help with or to work on. And that's something as us and then also team-wise that can apply to your marriage or your business. And now we know like, oh, this is what you're working on this week. How can I support you?
Yes.
This is what your problems are this week. Oh, the car was having some issues. Or, oh, you need to get the battery changed. Or, oh, we need, I had an issue with the website. These are things that we can either get help with or I know you're working through and be mindful of.
Yes, absolutely. And also there's grace and grit, right? Where you can show each other grace in certain periods, which one of those is, hey, we have a deadline. We're in a little bit of a grind season right now. I'm going to give you a little bit of grace that we're not going to be able to spend as much time together. However, with it, again, those micro moments that you can take out of your day and just show your spouse that you appreciate them, but then also for your team members as well. In business, being able to show them that you appreciate them, giving them grace in some areas, realizing though that this is still a business, we still need to move forward, but there are some things that you can give grace to. And
something that I want to mention too, just that in action or in real time is you had a really huge conference recently and I was there. It wasn't my conference. I'm just there supporting you. So I'm the Instagram husband, taking pictures, light ring. How can I help? What can I do? Right? Do you need me to bring you food? You're getting ready. Let me go grab breakfast from downstairs and bring it up so you can eat real quick and go to your conference. That's a perfect example of like, how can I be supportive? You're on stage. Like, this is your moment. How can I be supportive? Or that's the grit and grace. Same thing if I'm grinding or I'm like focused and I've had some really big projects or travel, and when I'm working on big projects, I'm like locked away doing things, working late, like you dropping off a protein shake or a power bar or refilling my water or just telling me like, man, great job. Like, babe, great job. You're doing incredible. Like, those are something that like when that tank gets a little bit low and you're like close to E, sometimes your red light is on and that can just be like, I'm tired or like, oof. Do I want to read through this email one more time or do I just send it? Like that can that can keep somebody going, and your partner like literally can be that motivation for you, just like your kids or whatever it is that keeps you in the game.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. And actually that was the next key talking point, is celebrate wins together. Being intentional to pause throughout the day to let that person know that, although we're in a business together, hey, I just want to pop into your office and say, hi, hi, hello, just thinking about you. Do you need anything? What can I get for you? And I also think that's a great way, as we were talking about earlier, when we were talking about the alpha aspect, is when you are, for us, right, when we're separated and doing our business, are working separately, we're both in our alpha modes. But then when we come in and like check on each other, it's like, hey, hello, what can I get for you? Do you need anything?
Hi.
I brought you, I brought you this, I brought you that. Or, hey, I know you love, we're working at home right now, but remotely, like, hey, I made you those yoga bars so you have it for later, right? There's like little things like that where that took me 5 minutes out of my day to be able to do something like that. But just remembering, again, if your business fails, you still have a marriage, and that you need to pour into both of them and making sure that it's something that you're continuously watering and not letting it go so long where it's like we've been in business mode this entire time that we forgot to pour into our marriage. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we're better business partners than we are spouses.
And people say that.
Come on now.
People say that.
People say that.
We're better friends. How many times you talk to somebody that's now divorced, like, we're better friends, or
come on now,
we were better business partners than husband and wife? And it's like, but could you have worked through it? And then
Yeah.
how many people end up divorcing? Are like, actually, now that I'm out here in the dating scene, I actually think we
Now
could
that
have
I'm
worked.
in the wild.
I'm in the wild. I realized we could have worked through this.
Yes, exactly.
We had a lot more in common than I thought.
Exactly. And so intentionally pausing
Yes.
throughout the day, throughout the weeks, making sure that you're making that time for each other. So we talked about some practical tips, some key talking points, encouragement you can build together without breaking each other down or breaking a pattern of investing into both business and marriage. And so, yeah, I think when we talk about this, is there anything else that you'd like to add as we wrap up here?
Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe.
I was just kidding. Well, that was my next. So, if you know a husband and wife team that just started out or that is working together and you think that they would find some of what we are talking about impactful, please share this episode with them, whether it is through Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or if you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe on our YouTube. And also, as always, please follow us on social media at CoupleyFit, CoupleyFit.